Chapter 72 of Married Thrice to Salted Fish. Shaoli is the emperor's youngest son and his only son by the empress. Only 15 years old this year, he was supposed to be the object of admiration in the palace, growing up loved and pampered. However, due to his lack of innate intelligence, he was regarded as a disgrace by the emperor and left neglected in the provisional palace. No matter how much the empress thought of her son, she was only able to see him twice a year, once during the Mid Autumn Festival and once during the New Year. The sixth prince? Huji asked. Why are you suddenly interested in the sixth prince? Lin Qingyu found the row where the prince's medical records were stored. I want to know how the sixth prince got sick. Although Shaocheng had great respect for the empress, his Dimu, he was after all someone who had a biological mother. Moreover, his biological mother was a noble concubine with a distinguished status. When Shaocheng ascends the throne in the future, both the empress and concubine Chen would be empress dowages. One a Moho empress dowager and the other one Shengmu empress dowager. Having been in control of the harem for so long, naturally, the empress wouldn't want to share power with another woman. Anyone who didn't want Shaocheng to ascend to the throne could temporarily be his ally, and to win over the empress, Shaoli was undoubtedly the best point of entry. Shaoli had been relegated to the provisional palace for more than 10 years, and the emperor has kept his son's dullness a secret. He was spoken of very rarely in the palace. Lin Qingyu and Huji have only entered the palace in recent years, and the only thing they know about the sixth prince was that he was a dullard. As to how severe his dullness, they had no idea. Huji helped Lin Qingyu find the medical records. He said, I heard the empress called the famous doctors to diagnose and treat the sixth prince. But no matter whether it was the imperial physicians in the capital or miracle working doctors of the Jinghu, they were all helpless in the face of the sixth prince's illness. Given the circumstances, it would seem that his dullness is innate. There is no cure. While Lin Qingyu agreed with Huji's statement, Shaoli was still his biggest bargaining chip to control the empress. Therefore, this matter was worth him expending a bit more of time. I found it. Huji took out a thick and heavy case of medical records. Take a look and see if this is it. Lin Qingyu took a look. This is indeed the sixth prince's medical records. The two immediately began reading. Every doctor who examined Shaoli said that his pulse was no different from that of any other person. They couldn't even find the cause of his illness, so how could they possibly treat him? Shaoli's medical file was much thicker than others. At first, he was no different from the other princes. He was examined daily, and before the age of 2, he suffered nothing more serious than the occasional mild illness. But by 2 years of age, Shaoli could still not speak. The empress began to worry. More and more doctors were invited to the palace, and more medical records were made. While Shaoli was 5 years old, the emperor gave up completely. Ignoring the empress' pleas, he insisted on sending his youngest son to the provisional palace. On the day Shaoli left the palace, another person came to examine him. This person was no imperial physician. As a matter of fact, he wasn't any sort of doctor. Rather, it was the national teacher of Dayu, Xu Junyang. The last record in the prince's file said, the national teacher declares his illness to be loss of soul, and there is no cure for it. A loss of soul? Huji pondered. I have heard my grandmother say that a newborn soul is unstable. Given a terrible fright, it may just scare the soul away. Lin Qingyu asked, do you believe that? Huji smiled, embarrassed. I know doctors shouldn't believe this, but there are many things that simply cannot be explained by common sense. Lin Jingyu closed the medical file. I didn't used to believe it, but now Gu Fuzhao's soul can fly all over the world. What was Shaoli's mere loss of soul compared to that? Hu Ji said, if the sixth prince really has lost his soul, then he's beyond help, even if Hua Tuo were to be brought back to life. Lin Jingyi thought for a moment and said, I still want to see it with my own eyes. Who is the medical officer for the provisional palace now? Whenever people in the palace spoke of a provisional palace, they often referred to Jinyang Garden. It was but a day's ride away, half if you spurred on a horse to full speed. Jinyang Garden was built facing the water and was used by the imperial family as a summer retreat. In recent years, the emperor has been in poor health and has not visited Jinyang Garden in a long time. In Jinyang Garden, apart from a few old concubines, there was only one master, Shaoli. The maids and eunuchs who served there were naturally not as dedicated as those in the palace. Even the medical officer was the lowest rank in the imperial hospital. Lin Jingyi told his father of his intention to visit the sixth prince in the provisional palace. Father Lin asked no further questions and quickly made the arrangements for Lin Jingyu. The capital already experienced its first snowfall and the days were becoming colder and colder. A lot of people got sick. Generally speaking, imperial physicians were reluctant to journey to places like the provisional palace. Father Lin, on the grounds that they were short-handed in the palace, dispatched a doctor who had no official position but with real talent and practical knowledge would not incur much comments from others. The trip and back from Jinyang Garden would take Lin Jingyu 2 days by carriage. After Gu Fuzhao found out, he wanted to go with Lin Jingyu but was ruthlessly rejected. Don't you need to attend morning court? Discuss government affairs? I do, Lin Jingyu said bitterly. But I'm sick. You see, I will wither if I don't see Dr. Lin for even a single day. Lin Jingyu asked, will this disease affect your sleep? That's a good question. Gu Fuzhao rubbed his chin and said, the last time I lost sleep was the last time. Lin Jingyu looked at Gu Fuzhao as though he were looking at a fool. Gu Fuzhao smiled and said, I meant back when I was in Yongliang. At that time, that son of a bitch emperor refused to let me come back. I was so anxious I couldn't sleep. Lin Jingyu calmly packed his medicine box. It's obviously nothing big if it's not going to affect your sleep. I will be back as soon as possible. Gu Fuzhao knew that Lin Jingyu was going there for business, and he was simply all talk when it came to his complaints. In the end, he would definitely let him leave. Lin Jingyu went unimpeded all the way. Once the guard of Jinyang Garden checked his identity, he was allowed through with a few cursory questions. In Jinyang Garden, there were stacked up hills and chiseled out ponds. There was continuous running water. It was outfitted with numerous pavilions, scattered high and low. It was a splendid sight in summer. In winter, only a sense of bleakness was left. Walking through the garden, only a handful of eunuchs and maids sweeping the grounds could be seen. It wasn't even as lively as the general's mansion. Lin Jingyu followed the eunuch who led the way to the medical building. There was only one medical officer on duty, a fat man, his stomach almost bursting out of his official uniform, roasting sweet potatoes by the charcoal fire. Hearing footsteps, he didn't lift his head, saying, there is no medicine here. If you are sick, you can either go out and find a doctor or you can concoct the medicine yourself. The eunuch guide said, Imperial Physician Hong, someone from the Imperial Medical Office is here. When the medical officer surnamed Hong heard the words Imperial Medical Office, he immediately stood up. Seeing Lin Chingyu, he was given another shock. You are? My surname is Lin. There were very few with the surname Lin within the Imperial Medical Office, and the person in front of him was of such outstanding looks that he easily guessed his identity with only that bit to go on. Imperial Physician Hong smiled and said, Ah, it's the General's wife. Please excuse my rudeness. You said just now that this clinic is out of medicine? It's but natural. Imperial Physician Hong sneered at Lin Chingyu's icy expression. With the coming of winter begins, lot of people get sick. For coughs and colds, naturally, the medicine I have simply isn't enough. Then, in case His Highness falls ill, do you expect him to either go out and find a doctor or concoct the medicine himself? Imperial Physician Huang was momentarily at a loss for words. That, what is the general's wife saying? His Highness the Sixth Prince is in good health. I said, in case. Well, we will definitely find a way. His Highness is the Emperor's son. Even if we each had 9 heads more than one, who would not dare to neglect his condition? When Lin Chingyu had served as an official in the palace for a long time, he was long accustomed to dealing with people who insist on acting willfully, showing outward devotion but inner opposition. Where is His Highness now? He said. Today I have come to examine His Highness. Imperial Physician Huang complained bitterly in his heart, but for fear that Lin Chingyu would blab to the Yun Pan, maybe even reporting to the Empress, he had no choice but to carefully try his best to please. Yes, I asked the general's wife to please come this way. Lin Chingyu reached the pavilion where Shaoli resided. As soon as he entered the gate, he saw a young man dressed in black brocade squatting in the snow, his head lowered, playing some unknown game. It was such a cold day, yet the boy didn't even have a cloak on. Lin Chingyu asked the eunuch who guided their way, Is this His Highness the Sixth Prince? The eunuch readily affirmed, Yes. Though there were people talking nearby, Shaoli gave no response. He inserted his head, red from the cold, into the snow. He dug up a handful of snow and stuffed it into his mouth. Your Highness! The eunuch rushed to Shaoli's side and grabbed his hand. You can't eat this. With the eunuch's pull, the snow in Shaoli's hand fell to the ground. He stared blankly at the ground. He then slowly stood up and looked at Lin Chingyu. When their eyes met, Lin Chingyu was slightly startled. Shaoli was born with outstanding physical qualities. With a slender figure, at the age of around 15 or 16, he was already as tall as Lin Chingyu. His brows were delicate and evenly spread, his facial features imposingly handsome. However, his eyes were blank. He appeared lifeless and dull. No matter how unsurpassed his appearance, his spiritless manner lowered its overall quality. For some reason, Lin Chingyu always felt that Shaoli's appearance was somewhat familiar. Now we know the host body might look like the OG salted fish. Lin Chingyu saluted to Shaoli. Student Lin Chingyu greets Your Highness. Shaoli still did not respond. He squatted back again, repeating his previous action of digging and eating snow. Lin Chingyu said coldly, Where are the momos who look after His Highness? The eunuch was so nervous that he broke out in a cold sweat. I will go find them now. Lin Chingyu stood beside Shaoli, watching him for a while. He then stretched out his hand and helped the young man up. Your Highness, let's go inside. Shaoli let him support him up, neither crying nor making trouble like a walking corpse. Lin Qingyu asked him to sit on a chair, then took out a wrist below to diagnose his pulse. The only thing he could glean was that Shaoli was suffering from a cold. However, other than that, he was indeed no different from any other person. Lin Qingyu finally understood what was meant by a loss of soul. The sixth prince, Shaoli, truly was left with only an exquisite body. His inner essence was gone. After a while, the maids and eunuchs serving Shaoli arrived, even sporting an ugly expression. These were all Shaoli's long-term servants. Although the sixth prince was the emperor's son, he was shunned by the emperor and the empress is able only to see him twice a year. The sixth prince couldn't speak. He couldn't speak up even when he was being treated harshly. So long as they went through the motions whenever the empress sent someone to inspect, they could go lazing about all the other days. Lin Qingyu didn't even ask where they were just now. He ordered, "His Highness has cold. Go and cook a bowl of ginger soup." While everyone was busying about, Shaoli sat there motionless, as though he didn't exist in this world. Lin Qingyu wrote out a prescription for Shaoli to ward off the cold. He asked the eunuch to hand it over to the imperial physician Huang. "I know that there is no medicine in the clinic. I will ask my father to inform the empress about this and have her send more medicine." This single sentence cost them nearly half their lives. "Dr. Lin, these servants know we have done wrong. We shall definitely serve His Highness well in the future. We beg you." Lin Qingyu smiled compassionately. "You may tell this to the empress later." Lin Qingyu didn't stay in Jinyang Garden for long. He drove through the night and returned to the capital the next day. Dr. Lin is finally back. Gu Fuzhao had just arrived home, still in his official uniform. He welcomed Lin Qingyu at the door. "It's true what they say. A separation of 2 days feels like a separation of 2 days." Lin Qingyu frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Gu Fuzhao held back a smile. "It's nothing." He took the fox fur cloak that Lin Qingyu took off and hung it on his arm. "It's been so long since we have seen each other. Could it be that there is something you want to tell me?" "Yes." Lin Qingyu stepped into the room. "But I will have to inconvenience the general to make me a cup of tea first." After drinking the tea made by his husband, Lin Qingyu recounted to Gu Fuzhao everything that had happened at Jinyang Garden. "Tomorrow I will go to see the empress again. I believe she will want to see me this time." Gu Fuzhao listened absent-mindedly. "What else?" "What else? What else do you want to tell me?" Lin Qingyu thought for a while and asked, "What did you look like before?" Gu Fuzhao hadn't expected for Lin Qingyu to suddenly ask this. "Really? Didn't you see it in the dream?" Lin Qingyu felt inexplicably guilty. "I forgot." Gu Fuzhao raised his eyebrows. "Didn't you say you have a highly retentive memory? How could you forget what I looked like?" Lin Qingyu made no change in his expression. How can dreams and the real world be compared? Looking at people in dream is like looking at the moon reflected on water or at flowers through a fog. It's always separated by a layer. It's only normal that I would forget. "Well, I don't know how to describe it to you," Gu Fuzhao said. "Besides, I haven't been in my original body for so long. It's been 2 years. I myself have probably forgotten my original appearance." Lin Qingyu was lost in thought. The Gu Fuzhao in his dream had once made his eyes shine. Compared to Shao Li, he gave him a far different feeling, but he was also a handsome young man. Too bad he was a dullard. Gu Fuzhao looked at Lin Qingyi for a long time. He sighed. How annoying. Lin Qingyi came back to his senses. What's so annoying? Because for the past 2 days, it seems like you didn't miss me at all. Lin Qingyu. Dot dot dot. Gu Fuzhao had just been casually complaining. He wasn't actually expecting a response from Lin Qingyu. They'd been discussing for so long, and he was beginning to feel sleepy when suddenly he heard Lin Qingyu say, not necessarily. Gu Fuzhao was slow to respond, not fully realizing it yet. Huh? Cheeks warm, Lin Qingyu quickly changed the subject. I'm hungry. Let's eat. Somebody's blushing. Somebody's missing their husband. Ooh. Hopefully, he questions his feelings soon. Then he will realize he likes his salted fish husband.